everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome Eric Sun. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Of course. Thanks for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, absolutely. So Eric is here because he is a creative. And I know we haven't had a lot of creatives on, but this is going to be a good one because Eric is a freelance photographer that has started his own business. And I'm excited to hear his story today because, well, actually, I'm not going to spoil anything. So we'll let him tell you his story a little bit. But before we get started on his actual story, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about what it is you do and maybe like what a typical day would look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a freelance photographer, so I take pictures. That's pretty much the sum of what I do. The typical day for me, I mean, especially now because it's summer, is the busy season. So
Mm.
I pretty much wake up early in the morning. I do a few shoots throughout the day. I come home, sometimes like 8 or 10 hours later, and then I start editing, you know, and then I do it again the next day. So that's kind of what my day looks like.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, first question is you said it's summer, so it's busier. Can I ask you why that is?
Yeah, well, for one, when it's winter, nobody wants to do photos outside because it's so
Oh,
cold.
right,
But
right.
also the photography genres that I'm in. So I specialize now in portraiture, so portraits, headshots, and real estate,
Mm.
architectural design. So most people in real estate, the market is really hot in the summer because school's out and people want to move before school starts. And then so in the wintertime, the real estate definitely slows down quite a bit. And same with like a lot of development, same with a lot of, stuff like that. But also just for portraits and headshots, I think November and December, that's when businesses usually are trying to create a budget for next year. So they're not really spending
Mm.
money. And then come like March, April, after first quarter, that's when businesses are starting to spend money again, on marketing and like for their website, for social media, for all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. So, the days that you're out for like 8 hours for different shoots and stuff, like, um, I mean, is your clientele like across the board, or right now is it like mainly real estate?
So it's mostly real estate right now, just
Okay,
because, the
this
market
season. It's
is
insane. The
ridiculous
market
right
right
now.
now is insane. Let's just
Right.
be real.
Yes, it is ridiculous, especially for first time home buyers. But it's probably about like a 60-40, 60 real
Mm,
estate and 40 like everything else.
okay.
Yeah.
Man, those are long days.
Yes. Very much so. Yeah.
I mean, so like okay, so you get to a house. Let's say, okay, I'm just gonna use real estate for an example.
Sure,
You
yeah.
get to a house. How long does one house take to get all the shots you need?
Well, since I've been doing it for a while,
Uh-huh.
thankfully, it doesn't take as long as it did before. So, for like a average single family home, it takes me about an hour and a half to two at most.
Okay. Okay.
Photograph it, and then after that, I lock up and then I head to the next one, or I go home and edit before my next shoot
Okay. Oh, before you go home and edit before your next shoot.
if I have the time. Yeah, depends
Uh,
if I have the time.
I guess agents want it a quick turnaround,
Yeah,
probably.
so yeah, most agents I think now expect the photos the next day.
Okay.
It's a very quick turnaround time.
Right. Um, okay, I'm so sorry for like my ignorance. Um, but okay, so 1.5 to 2 hours, like it seems long to me, but like, uh, is it so? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, why does it take that long?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good question. Because so what I pride myself on with my business, or it's just like the mentality of, how I started was I prefer quality.
Mm,
So I want quality to be part of my brand and part of my
mm,
business, right? So
yeah.
anything that does not meet a certain standard, if I'm not happy with it, I don't expect someone to pay for it, you
Okay.
know? So I mean, just the way my technique and how I shoot, I mean, I use off-camera flash and I photograph each house, like each room. And
Mm.
then, so sometimes like if it's like a really big open concept house, like sometimes I'll take maybe like 7, 10, 13 shots of the same angle, but I
Okay.
just use the flash to pop up different areas of the room, and then I put it all together in Photoshop
I
after.
see. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I really want to ask you about like your skills and stuff, but I feel like I should wait for later.
Okay, okay.
um and so like when you're doing like portraits and things like that and working with people, like is that very different for you than taking houses as far as um like is one more challenging for you than the other?
So I started in portrait,
Okay.
just because it's a lot easier to find someone to take pictures of and be
Mm.
like, hey, can I take pictures of your house?
Yes,
Right. So, I mean,
yes.
I would photograph my friends and stuff like that when I was first starting out. But I think that they both have their own unique challenges.
Mm.
Because you can't, it's really hard. So, what a lot of people, I guess, assume is that if you're a photographer, you can shoot everything. Excuse me. And that is very much not true. Because
Mm.
like if you do portrait work, you'll probably have a basic understanding of how light works, but you won't be a very good food photographer, you know, because the way you have to style food, the way you have to like present it, and the stories you kind of have to tell, like it's completely different. Because with a person, you can actually have them interact, like the way their hair flows, or just you know, you will sculpt their face and their body. But with food, I mean, you have to make it look like someone wants to eat it, you know, but you can't have that same concept with a person because
Right.
it would just be weird,
Right.
you know? But yeah, but I mean, so yeah, they have their own unique challenges for sure. Like with
Mm.
people, I mean, there's the whole, like you have to really guide somebody through the whole shoot, especially if they're not experienced, and you just make them feel comfortable. And then there's certain skills and certain tricks that you do to help like
Mm.
slim the face or accent the jawline or even the curves, depending on the body type. But with homes, it's completely different. It's
Mm.
mostly about because everything is like angular, you know, because the
Mhm.
room just has four walls and then you got to try to make it look pretty.
Mhm.
So it's mostly about like angles and lighting and like what time of day do you shoot the house, like how's the sun hitting and coming in through the windows, like all that stuff.
Interesting. I really found it interesting when you were saying how one might think a photographer can shoot anything and do well.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of think that without even realizing I think that. But it was interesting how you said that, yeah, you can't if you're not used to shooting a specific subject. And oh, wow. I never thought about that food thing either. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there are photographers that do multiple genres,
Sure. I
but
mean,
it's almost like
you do multiple
yeah,
genres. Yeah.
for sure. But it's almost like the same thing. It's like if you're good at everything, then
Hmm.
you're not great at anything.
Okay. I
You know what I
gotcha.
mean? So it's kind of like
Yeah,
that.
no, I totally get it.
But it's also mad expensive.
Yeah.
They're like because each genre needs its own kind of equipment, and so it's super expensive if
Oh,
you just do a lot. You know, so
I see. That makes complete sense. So, okay, I mean, like, these genres that you've kind of picked up on and are kind of maybe specializing in now, um, did you decide that? Like, this is what I'm going to do? Or, like, what was the choice that you made? Like, is it the
uh,
money? I don't, like, I'm so curious.
no, absolutely. It was in the beginning. It was the money. Because when I was
Uh,
first starting out, yeah, when I was first starting out, I mean, I said yes to everything. So I mean,
mm,
I shot food, I shot portraits, I shot products, I shot real estate, I shot um, like everything that I could just to
mm-hmm,
get money and also experience and build up my portfolio. But then the more that I started doing certain kinds of work, I was like, yeah, that doesn't really interest me. I don't really like that. Like working with food, I'm not that type of person. Like I
Mm-hmm,
don't think
mm-hmm.
in a way that like can really do well in food photography.
Like appreciate the art of the food itself,
Well, I
maybe?
mean,
Is
it's
that
just like the amount of so like a lot of the commercials that you see or like the photos that you see, like I
uh-huh.
mean, they have like toothpicks in there. They have certain sprays to make the lettuce look good, and it's not water because like water will like cause the leaves to dry out faster, and like there's certain like things that you so like it's just so detailed
So
that
magical.
yeah, it's so crazy. And so I was like, yeah, I am not. I'm detailed, but I'm not that detailed.
Right, right,
But then
right.
the more I got into like portrait work and then real estate, the more I was like, I want to up my game. I want to become better. I want to provide a better service to my clients. That's when I was really interested, and I found myself just like learning a lot on my own, and then that's just what I settled on.
I see. I see.
Yeah, because I really enjoy it.
So I did a little bit of homework, Eric, and I looked on your website and I I noticed a lot of like city shots as well, like of our city, Atlanta.
Yes,
Um and you sell those photos.
yes.
And a little bird told me, also named Edward's son, who has been on the podcast. Um, I don't know if this is the same situation, but like he told me you have sold like one of your photos to a major hotel chain or something.
Yeah, yeah, I did, which I was very happy about.
Was it an Atlanta picture?
It was, yeah. And they're using it on like travel.com and like using as part of a whole marketing campaign to help the hospitality industry and encourage people to start traveling again.
That's crazy. Don't downplay that, man.
No, I mean, no, yeah, it was a big deal. Like when I was holding the check, I was like, this is like I think I made it. Like this is great.
No, yeah, for sure. But okay, so like how did that even happen?
Yeah, so if you go on my Instagram, I mean all I post are just like cityscapes,
Okay.
like aerial cityscapes of Atlanta. Shout out to Atlanta because I think it's the best city in the world.
Yes,
But it's
agreed.
just my opinion. But I love it. But yeah, I mean, I just post cityscapes, and then I think last year my goal was to hit 1,000 followers.
Okay.
I didn't think I was gonna make it. I don't know this. That's not that big in the grand scheme of things, but I was like, I'm gonna hit 1,000, and then so I hit the mark, and then the marketing manager of that hotel chain in Atlanta stumbled upon my Instagram and started following me. And then so she really started liking my photos. And then so she reached out and was like, hey, this is who I work for. I'm interested in hiring you for work or even buying one of your prints for right now. And I was like, oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh
Absolutely.
my
Like, let's
gosh.
talk and see like what you want. And so, yeah, they picked a photo. She showed it to her, board, and they all loved my photos and they picked one. And then, yeah, that was that.
That is super exciting. Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
No, thank you. Yeah, it was very surreal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard work paid off, I feel like too. Because I would it would it's not for me, it's like not by chance or anything like that. And just knowing seeing your work and knowing how hard I'm sure you've worked to get where you are today. Yeah, it's really awesome. Like for you to be recognized in that capacity. So cool.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Um so now I need to know like and I don't want to pretend like I know your life because I don't, but it's I know that your intention was not always to be a photographer.
Right.
So could you maybe take me back to like I don't know, even high school? Like how did this journey start and how did it end up here?
Yeah. So I had no idea what I wanted to do in high school. I mean, because I was not good in school. I was not your, good Asian kid, like I did not like school. I didn't go to school. I would skip school and stuff like that. But it was mostly just because I didn't learn well in that kind of environment.
Mm,
I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I had to graduate. The next step was college, um, and then in college, I wanted to get into music
mm,
because I just really loved. I just love music. Like I'm always listening to music, and but then my parents were like, "No, you need something very
mm,
practical. Music is not, like you can do music after you get this degree, and then you can maybe study more and go back to school if you want to for that. So I went to GPC, which is now Georgia State.
Mm-hmm,
So I got an upgrade
mm-hmm.
from there. From there, and yeah, so I got a degree in business administration,
Okay.
and I had no idea what that even meant. I
I
was
was
like,
gonna say, what is that?
yeah, I still have no idea, and but it just had the word business in it, and I was like, okay, that should be make my parents happy. So I did that. I graduated, and then I tried to get more into the music industry a little bit 'cause I
Mm,
still really wanted to figure out how this music thing would work.
mm,
Um, but I was not really gifted in music, I would say. So then I got like a whole 9 to 5 job at a database company. And then just while I was working there, a few friends and we took a trip to Europe. And
mhm,
then I was like, man, we're going to Europe. This is my first international trip with my friends. Like, it deserves a good camera. It deserves good photos, right? Because Europe is so beautiful. And so when we got there, uh, I think we started in Paris and then we went to Barcelona and then Florence and other cities. I bought a camera when I was in Paris. And then from there, I just kind of fell in love with it. I
mm,
didn't even read the manual. I was just playing with it
mm.
because I'm one of those guys where I just don't read I don't read instructions, right? I just try to figure it out. Um, yeah, and I just fell in love with it. And then from there, like my friends would ask me, like, "Hey, can you take pictures of, my family? Can you take pictures of me?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I would do that, and then people would start asking, like, "Hey, can I pay you to take pictures of me?" And I was like, yes, 100%. Like, yeah, of course. I'll be happy to take your money. And then so it kind of just took off from there.
Mm,
But yeah, and then I quit my 9 to 5 job because I was just completely like not happy at all
mm,
with where I was. It was like sucking my soul dry. I hated going to work every day, and so I just quit. I had no idea what I was gonna do, but I knew that at the end of the day, I can always just either go back or find another job.
mm.
Like it wasn't that big of a deal, but I wanted to just quit and just try this photography thing and just see where it will go. Um, and then I'm here today, So that's kind
That's
of how it
crazy.
worked.
Yeah. Can I ask you the timeline a little bit as far as like age goes? Like, so you graduate, you find this data, or you explored music for a little while. How long did you do that before finding that job at the database place?
So I was working at Publix before the database
Okay.
company, and so I worked at Publix for like 5 years,
Okay.
so all throughout high school, um, or actually, I think junior year in high school, all the way
Mm-hmm.
to the end of college.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I was doing the music thing as well on the
Okay, at
side.
the same time. I
Yeah, at the
okay.
same time. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think 2 years into the database company, that's when I quit.
Mm, okay.
I don't remember how old I was,
Okay.
but I think I was definitely like in my early 20s.
Okay. Okay. So, can I ask you, like the whole music thing, like, so you wanted to be an artist or you wanted to be like a producer or both?
Yeah, so I wanted to be an artist.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I guess I so Edward talk. Oh, by the way, Edward is Eric's brother. If you didn't know, he's been on the podcast and has shared his life story and how he's an amazing graphic designer now. Both creatives.
Yes, yeah.
But Edward told me like he was inspired to do music because of you too.
Yeah.
Um, so your pursuit of the music stuff, like so you said like you weren't good enough or you felt like you didn't have talent, but you were still passionate about it.
Yeah, so so growing up I was really into rap and hip hop.
Okay.
And just the storytelling of it, just the art of it, and also
Mm,
just the resistance of what hip hop represented,
yeah.
and just like a conduit to really um, stand up for yourself and find yourself, all of that stuff
Mm,
together. And I was really attracted to that because I would say that hip hop music definitely helped shape me. It helped raise me, you
Mm.
know. And I mean, I was also really involved in like Black culture and like Black community growing up as well. So it was just a lot of exposure, right, to that culture and then to that music. And so I was really drawn to that and also wanted to really inspire people. And I
Mm.
also really wanted to be able to just really be a voice for the people and also for the Asian American community.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's those things are still there. Like
Yeah.
the desire is still there, but the medium is now different. Yeah.
But was it hard to like kind of say like, okay, just like let it go?
Yeah. That was probably one of the hardest seasons of my life.
Mm.
Because I mean, I feel like I gave so much of myself to try to see where that would go. Um, and I mean, yeah, it was really devastating. You know, just for a long time, I was like really struggling and really just like asking God, you know? So I'm a believer. So I was really asking God, I was like, why would you put me through this? You know, like I really like, you know, poured everything that I had into it. And I was like, and you're just gonna like see me do that and just leave me and not even tell
Right.
me like this wasn't, you know, what it was
Mm.
gonna be. But looking back in hindsight, I think the things that I learned through that season helped me get to where I am today. Um, Yeah, I mean, because being a musician and trying to go through the music industry and like trying to quote make it in music, I think is significantly more difficult than being a photographer.
Right. No, I don't, I believe you completely.
I mean, just the way that I tell people now, I was like, people don't need more music, but people
Mm.
need photos. You know, like businesses need photos, but businesses don't need
Right.
music. You know,
Right.
like when you go and you open Spotify or, you know, whatever streaming platform, I mean, you have thousands and millions of songs you can just pick
Mm.
from. But to be a new artist to come out to give something that people feel like that they need, I think is extremely difficult. So shout out to all the musicians out there
For
that are
real, yeah.
killing it, that are doing it. Power to you. Believe in yourself and don't stop. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I would imagine when you've something that you've grown to love so much and like you said, really transformed you throughout your younger years, and to have to kind of be like, hey, maybe this is not this was a good season, but maybe this is time for a transition that maybe God's taking me somewhere else. I think is very difficult to do and a step that like takes a lot of maturity, honestly, if I'm completely honest about it. I feel like, to realize, hey, this was a great time. I learned a lot, but maybe God has something different. And that's really difficult and challenging. But thank you for sharing that with me because I feel like there might be some people listening, maybe feeling kind of the same.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so your photography business. So you said after your trip to Europe and people just thought you were awesome and wanted you to take their pictures. Um like and you mentioned at the very beginning when we were chatting that you kind of just took on everything in the beginning, right? To whatever people would hire you to do, you would do. But my question is like how do you even find the clientele? Like how do you even start that?
Right. No, that's a great question. So that was a big struggling point for
Mm,
me because well, since I quit my 9 to 5, so you know, side note,
mm.
if you're gonna go into photography and you're working a job, stay at your job until you or you know, if you hate your job, find another job
Right.
until your, you know, your side hustle or your photography business or whatever that you're doing picks up enough revenue for you to quit.
Valuable insight. Thank
Yeah,
you for
I'm
that.
just saying, you know, like it'll make your life a lot easier. But the best, yeah, so I mean, the hardest part was finding clients. And then, but people, it was just mostly like word of mouth, you
I
know, like I
see.
would tell my friends, like, hey, I'm a photographer, like tell your friends, you know. And then when I would work with somebody, like I would try to really network with them and network with the people that they know.
Mm,
And then just meeting like really dope people
mm,
that would really just put you on, you know?
mm.
Um, Especially if they liked your work. Like, I mean, I look back at my photos now and I'm like, I don't know why anybody would have put me, but I mean, people did because people generally did like them,
Mm,
and then it just went from there. But I think the biggest thing, I mean, I may be jumping ahead right now, but
that's
I
okay.
think the biggest um, filtering process
Mm-hmm.
to become a freelancer is not necessarily how good you are, but how long you can last.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm saying, yeah, and I mean, I can elaborate more, but like the more that you tell people that you do a certain thing, the more people, when they see you, they will think of that thing, right?
Right, right.
So like when I started telling people when I was first starting out, I was telling people I'm a photographer, but at that point, maybe I told like 30 people. Only those 30 people in the world knew,
Mm,
but as time progresses, those 30 people told more people, and I'm telling more people. And so now just the number of people that know about me and what I do, it just increased. And just because of that, um, more people will just start hitting me up, asking me to take pictures for them.
right, right. So, um, that's that's commitment, Eric. No, because like that's hard to do, and kind of just trust the process that people, like you have to network like that. And I'm sure when you were starting, I feel like Instagram and all that wasn't at the top of its game either. So even social
Yeah, yeah,
media wasn't what it is today. Um, so
for sure.
man, that's really tough, I feel like.
Yeah, so I mean, so back to what I said earlier about like trying to make it as a musician is
Yeah.
significantly harder. So one of the things that I
Mm,
learned as a because I mean as a musician, I mean you literally put yourself out there because you're on stage, you try to meet people, you really just, put yourself out there. And like the hustle and the grind, at least for me in my experience, was so much more difficult trying to network in that
mm,
industry that when I took that over into photography, like how aggressive that I had to be in music, I just took that over. And then like photography was just, I mean, it didn't feel any different, because that's
mm.
where I was coming from. And
Right,
then
right.
people actually, were looking for photographers, right? So
Mm,
then it was a lot easier for me to kind of connect with them. Whether or not they liked my work and want to hire me was a different story, but just the fact that they had a need and I was able to meet their need, I think was a lot easier.
right, right, right.
Yeah,
Um, so, my next question is, you know, you didn't go to school to be a photographer.
right.
So, you are very gifted and talented, and it seems as though you have a natural eye and to do this kind of work. But you also said, you figured out lighting and how to do certain skills to make your pictures look the way they do. Now, how does one who's never been to school for something like that pick up these skills?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. Excuse me. YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTubeversity.
YouTube University.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm completely self-taught, right?
Mm,
And yeah, and so most of it was just trial and error. Trial and error, and then I would watch people, I would watch YouTube videos, I would read articles, I would um go to Barnes and Noble, or even
mm,
when I'm shopping at the grocery store, I'll flip through magazines and then I'll kind of see like their photos and then try to study like how did they like this? Like how is the subject, posing, like all of this stuff. So I would just study and I would just learn as much as I could. And
mm,
then, yeah, and then I would try it at home. I would try it on myself. I would try it on my friends. I would try it on my family, you know. Shout out to them because they had to put up with that, right, all the time. But yeah, I mean, mostly it's like just everything is online. You can learn it online.
yeah, I mean, he said so like nonchalantly. No, I mean, my husband and I were just talking about this, and Actually, not just. We just talk about it all the time because I think about Eli and Zoe, my children, and um they're very young. They're 4 and 2, and I know they have a long way till they get to college. However, like I'm a very like traditional person, and it's just my part of my personality. I'm an only child. It's just I think I just my personality is just very like there needs to be structure, right? So for
Sure.
me, the natural order of things, right, is like high school, college, and then you work, right? And not that my life was like that. It definitely wasn't, but it's just what we're taught. And
Right.
that's for a whole nother podcast, honestly, if I get on my soapbox about structure and of all that. But all that to say, David, my husband, he's like, honey, like, you can learn anything and everything you want online for free. Like these days. If Eli and Zoe find like they love something and they can learn everything online and then make a business and be successful, why do we need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars? Now that's not to say to not go to college, boys and
Yeah,
girls. But
yeah, don't go. It's not.
but yeah, I mean, I what I'm my point is like, yeah, I think the internet is such a useful tool to have, in
Right.
this day and age. And but yes, but I will say to that, just because you learn something, I feel doesn't mean you have a natural talent for it,
For sure, for sure. I
right?
mean, there's so many things that tie into it, and I'm also not encouraging people to not go to
Yeah.
college. Like, go to school, get your education. Education is super important. But yeah, but I mean, it's not just that you can learn anything online. It's like, how do you learn? You know, like if
Mm.
you like, because like there are some people that learn best in a
Yes.
school environment. You know,
Yes.
for me, I struggled ever since I was little. Like I struggled in school because I can't learn in an environment where you're just sitting there for like 45 minutes listening to someone talk to you. You know,
Mhm.
like that's just
Mhm.
not the way that I learn. Like I need to be hands-on. I need to like play around with it. I need to ask all these questions. But then when you ask too many questions, like you then get seen as like a troublemaker, something like that.
Mm.
So for me, I learn best as just trial and error, which
Mm.
has its pros and cons, right? But for me, yeah, I mean, so it really depends on how you learn and how you apply things. I think is a big part of it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love what you just said. I think that's completely true. And again, just having my own children, knowing that firsthand that like, oh, Eli and Zoe, they are completely different people.
Mm.
Eli enjoys reading books, and Zoe's like can't even sit still for one for like a 30 seconds. So, yeah, and just seeing that in the early ages, realizing, oh, you know what? I'm sure the way they learn, whether it's in school or at church or whatever sports, like it's going to be so different,
Yeah.
because they're not the same. And so, yeah, I really like that point, Eric, that you made, and being able to. I mean, because me, I don't know if I could do the YouTube thing because it would be difficult for me. I think. I don't know why. I don't know why. But I'm just more of like a book learner too. So, um, that's really neat. So, I mean, in order to do these trial and error type of things, right? Like you need equipment to do that. So like how did you start the process of like buying the equipment? You mentioned earlier that it is expensive, like
It's
photography
very,
equipment.
yeah,
Um
very.
yeah, like what did you do?
So I mean, when I worked at my 9 to 5, I mean, I was a single guy living with my parents, so I was able to like save up a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's just with that money, I was able to just start buying things. But I would buy things, um, knowing that they had to be portable and versatile in what they could do. So that's kind of, what I did. I just saved up money and then I just started buying the things that I thought that I needed. And then I tried to master what I had before buying the next thing, you know?
I see.
Yeah, because I know a lot of photographers, probably a lot of, musicians too. Like they're like, oh, like this is the best thing to have for this kind of gig. And so I need to save up like thousands of dollars to get this equipment to create this type of photo. But I mean, to an extent, your equipment is important, but honestly, like professional photographers, they can recreate basically like most images just with very basic equipment, you
Mm,
know? Yeah, until you get like very specific in your niche, do I feel like you need very specific tools for your kind of shoots to create a certain thing.
oh,
But
really? That's
yeah,
interesting
so
to know.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I still go in with the same mentality of like the equipment that I buy, it needs to be versatile in terms of cover, if not all, most of what I do.
I
If
see, I
not, then
see.
to me, it's not really worth the investment.
That, I mean, yeah, that would make sense. Like, why would you buy something that you can use on one thing, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't need it. I mean, unless I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
it, then I'll just charge my client for it, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Like it won't come out of my pocket, but that's like if they want a very specific thing, you know?
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So at what point, as far as like you started the photography stuff, like did you decide, or I don't know, like when were you like, I'm gonna make it my own business? Like I'm gonna make a actual business from this.
Yeah, so that I mean, when I did it, I just felt like that was the just natural progression
I
of
see.
next step,
Okay.
you know? Because I mean, it just kept growing.
Mm-hmm.
I kept growing, and I was like, hey, I think I'm making enough money to where I should incorporate this,
Okay. Yeah.
like officially file it with the Secretary of State, and then make it a business and make it official. Um, so that's pretty much what I did.
Mm-mm.
I just felt like it's about time, and then I just took that leap.
Now, when you started the business, were there any challenges for you that you could recall?
Oh, yeah, there's so many.
What are some? Just a few.
Well, one we kind of touched on before is just finding clients,
Sure, yeah.
But also the second one is so I'm an Enneagram type one.
Okay. I don't
So that
know
means I'm
exactly what that means, but
okay. So that means I'm a perfectionist,
oh,
right?
okay, okay.
So self-doubt. I think most of the struggles was internal for me. Um, and also when I was starting out, so like I didn't tell like my parents this, but when I was first starting out, like I was staying at my friend's house and I was paying rent and all this stuff. And so I was kind of in a position to where I needed to figure this out, or I would either not be able to pay rent or I wouldn't be able to eat.
Mm,
And I did put myself in that situation because I could have just gotten a job, but I chose to stick it out because I was like, I need to figure this out.
mm,
So that was kind of my way of pushing myself to make sure that if I'm committed to this, I need to do this 100% and not half-heartedly, because if I know that there's a safety net, if it gets too tough, I'll just jump onto the safety net, and then I would live with the regret of like, what if, you know?
yeah,
So that's kind of how that was a big struggle of just trying to figure out how to just pay for things. So that's
right.
that's why I just grabbed everything that I could. But then also figuring out like how much should I price, how much should I charge clients? Like how do I meet new clients? How do I brand myself? Like how do I even start a business? I mean, granted, I got like a business admin degree, but I didn't learn anything.
I know.
Like I
Forgot
just,
about
just
that for a
yeah, I
second.
mean, I just did it just to get a degree. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, for me growing up, I went to Chinese school, right? I just went to Chinese school, but I don't remember anything.
Right,
I
right,
just
right, right.
study to pass the test, and then I forget everything the next day.
Yes.
So it's kind of like that. So I was just really trying to figure out, okay, how do I create these spreadsheets? How do I
Mm,
account for like profit and loss? How do I account for margins? How do I account for, all this stuff? And like, am I good enough to charge this amount to cover my costs? Like, am I
right.
good enough, like at all to even, like, do I feel like I'm good enough? And then always feeling like that I'm not good enough, and then wrestling internally with that.
Mm,
Um, and so it was like a huge emotional roller coaster,
right, right.
um, being a business owner or entrepreneur, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a big struggle. Um, and it still lingers a little bit now, but
Sure.
yeah, that was a huge struggle starting out.
Um, yeah, I mean, it seems extremely daunting and overwhelming, and that's why I asked, because I think what you decided to do, especially just a complete like career shift, and then That's always hard for me too, like pricing, like, like
Right.
pricing
Right.
things, like asking people for money. But um yeah, again, that's why I asked, because I just wanted to hear a little bit of maybe the fears that you had going into it. And like you admittedly said, like even sometimes you still deal with today. But Eric, how were you able to kind of get over some of these this self-doubt and fear? Like, was it a matter of just being like, okay, like I gotta do it because, like you said, you have to eat and pay rent? Or did you have someone help you, or were there other practical steps that you took?
Yeah. So there were people along the way that definitely helped.
Mm,
I mean, but yeah, there's a handful of people for sure that helped. Um, but most of it was really, I mean, just learning, being okay with learning and being okay with admitting that I don't know everything and that's okay,
mm,
And I think the posture of being humble enough to be able to admit that, yeah, I just need to learn and that I
right.
don't know everything. And I mean, even if you have a background in whatever you choose to pursue, like still having the posture of like, there's always someone that is better, right?
Mm,
So then
yeah.
how do I learn to improve myself,
Mm,
to make sure that I'm the best that I can be for whoever I work with?
yeah.
And yeah, and so a lot of it was trial and error. I mean,
Mm,
because I learned the best through making mistakes,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which sucks when you make a really
Yeah.
big mistake, But
Right.
a lot of it was like, okay, I tried this, it didn't work, so let me try
Mm,
this, and then that worked, and then I
mm,
just kept going in the directions that worked.
yeah, man. Um, were at any point during this, you've brought up kind of in the beginning of your start of college and stuff, and even just pursuing music, that your parents kind of had a little bit of their opinion and say.
Right.
Like, yeah, so in I mean, you're still creative, you are making money now, but
Yes.
like, at the very genesis of it, did your parents express any concern?
Yeah, they were very clear about how they felt of me quitting my 9 to 5.
Ah,
And I mean, yeah, I mean, I remember that there would be, Asian parents, like there'd be comments of like, um, you're not gonna make it, or like,
mm,
stuff like that, where they're they're speaking out of what I believe their own personal trauma,
sure.
right? Of being immigrants and then of the whole survival mentality of like everything that they had to go through of just trying to make it here
Mm-hmm.
in the States. And then, of course they don't want their kids to go through that, right?
Of course.
So they're always telling you to go with the safe jobs of, being a lawyer or a doctor or going in IT or, whatever. Um, and so, yeah, they were very vocal about that. But then I think once for two reasons, I think they kind of like their minds kind of changed was they saw how determined I was. Because then, every time that you see them, I would see them, they'd be like, oh, how's your photography business? And then I
Mm,
would tell them, honestly. And then I think just with them seeing like, oh yeah, there's like good things are actually happening.
mm,
So I think that eased their, stress a little bit, their anxiety. But also like I'm able to provide for myself,
yeah.
through what I do. And I think um, with them speaking and like reacting the way that they do out of trauma, that them seeing that I'm actually okay pursuing this route,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, they're like, okay, well, he's fine. Like, granted, like, it's still risky, right?
Sure.
Having your own business, but he's actually eating off of what he's doing. So, what else can we ask for, right? I mean, the only other thing would be like the standard of living, but if you're okay with your current standard of living, then I mean, there's really nothing else to say.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're happy and healthy. So, really,
right.
what can they say?
Right. And I mean, I had to give myself a pep talk too,
Yeah.
because I feel like because I really wrestled with this early on too. I was like, I feel like, am I letting my parents down by
Mm,
going this route? You know, like everything that they sacrificed. I mean, they left their whole families to come to a new country, like for me to have a better future. Like, am I letting them down? But then, you know, I realized I was like, but what I'm doing now is part of the reason of what a better future means.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm able to go after what I'm passionate about, and I have the opportunity. And I think that to me is like, I mean, they wanted me to have more opportunities to have a better life. And if this is what a better life means to me, then I feel like that I am honoring them by doing what I'm doing
No,
and
yeah,
not
absolutely.
staying safe, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so I think it is, yeah. So it's more, is honoring than me just settling.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so that's, yeah, so that's kind of how I see it.
That's awesome. I think that's a really good point that you made too about just coming to that realization and also kind of even wrestling with that thought. Yeah, because I mean, we do, you know, I think all of us do. We really don't want to let our parents down because we love them. And, but just kind of coming to that self awareness, right? Like, and reflecting, I think is just an awesome point that you made. Eric, you know, do you, oh, I know. Sorry, it kind of slipped my mind. Sometimes when people are talking, and I'm listening, I promise, but then a question will come to my head as they're talking,
Right,
and
right, right.
sometimes it slips my mind. But all that to say, um yeah, like okay, you know, we've talked about the journey and where you are today, and you know, you are, I would say, successful, right? You've
Thank you.
made it, you know, you've made it. But like, do you love it? Like, do you love taking pictures?
Yes, most days.
Most days. Okay, like
Most
what
days,
do you
yes.
love about it though? Like why do you like taking pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the power of what a picture means, you know? Um, the power, like just what a photo can do, you know? Like, I mean, you capture a moment in time that lasts forever,
Mm,
you know? And I mean, just being able to be present in the, like, so for example, if I do like a family shoot, right? A family portrait session. I mean, the fact that I am there with them, like sharing these memories with them, sharing the experience with them, creating an experience for them to be able to like laugh and feel comfortable in front of the camera and like capture their funny moments or like their weird faces or like parents interacting with the kids. Like the fact that I'm able to capture that and
mm,
just be a part of their lives in that way just means a lot to me.
yeah.
Um, but also, I mean, just I think so I'm really big on like photojournalism as well. That is more of
Oh,
a
I
passion.
love it. I love photojournalism.
Yeah, that's a passion thing for me. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
but what I really want to get to the point in doing in my career is to be able to create photo series and projects that speak into society, right? That speak truth and speak reality into, and just give faces, like humanize people, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I mean, there are projects that, I mean, I have so many ideas that I can't wait to like implement. But one is just really like going around the city and just taking pictures of displaced people and just like having a face and sharing like what they look like, right? And
Mm,
like whether they're smiling, they're mad, they're upset, or they're sad, or whatever, just capturing the humanity
mhm,
of who they are, I think speaks volumes more than just like when you're sitting at a light and someone is holding a cardboard sign saying
mm,
like they need that they're hungry, you
yeah.
know. But it's like it's creating art that stirs up an emotion and stirs up a reaction. And I mean, another idea is just really talking about the immigrant experience, you know, and
Mm,
talking about the Asian American experience and what that has been like,
mm,
and what operating in this kind of society now, what it feels like, and having letting other people see the world through my eyes, through my lens, pun intended, to for them to just understand our experiences better. And so, just a lot of that, I think, gives me a lot of passion, and like it's just something that I'm just really in love with, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Oh man, I cannot wait to see those projects unfold one day. I mean, like as you're talking, I'm like, yes, Eric, this is it. Like that's good, you know? And I think part of it for me is just that sentiment of uh humanizing people, right? And also um invoking emotion through art and photography, or like for me, you know, as like like movies or video and things like that too. Like when you make somebody feel something, then you're doing something right, I feel, as
right,
an artist,
absolutely.
right? And so as you're saying that, it really resonates with me because I love that kind of stuff. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
wait to
I
see
hear
that
you.
unfold one day. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're like super slammed. Is that why you haven't started?
Yeah, that's yeah, I mean a lot of it, but also it's just, I haven't really had the time to really think through all the details either,
Sure.
or even found the right people that I want to collaborate with,
Oh,
to bring out these concepts, because I
yeah.
mean I had one that I wanted to do about mental health as well, but incorporate dancers. But the thing
Okay.
is, I'm not a dancer, so I don't
Right.
know. So I don't know anything about form. I don't know anything about like what type of dance genre speaks to what kind of emotion or like what type of,
Okay,
So
wait.
I don't.
Let's rewind a second. What do you mean like incorporate dancers? Like what did you envision?
I mean, just visually, it'll be like a very dramatic portrait of this dancer, multiple dancers, like interpreting an emotion through dance, and then just photographing them doing that. But then the questions that I have that I want to like be able to like bounce ideas off with and learn from someone else is like, what type of dance? Like, is it ballet? Is it hip hop dance? Is it swing? Is it, whatever? Like, what incorporates a certain emotion and this type of lighting and this type of look that would communicate and bring awareness to that mental health issue.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm not a dancer, so like if like if a ballerina is not like her feet aren't pointed correctly, like I would not know.
Right,
But
right,
then
right.
if I were to share that, everyone that knows something about that genre of dance would be more distracted by her form and like by how, or his or her form of dance, like as it is, than from the actual message the picture.
I see what you're saying.
Right. So
Oh,
just finding people like that and just,
yeah.
so it's also just finding the right people to work with.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that sounds really exciting. I cannot wait.
Yeah. No, I've been sitting on things for a minute, but I mean, all things have their time.
Yeah,
So
well, I'll pray that God will open doors
yeah,
because
thank
that
you.
sounds
Yeah, that would
exciting.
be, yeah.
I can't wait to see all that. Okay, so I wanted to ask you also, you know, as a freelance photographer, um, what do you, I think you kind of touched a little bit on everything already, but like I was going to ask what you hate the most or what you dislike the most or maybe the most challenging for you, and then also what you love the most about being a freelance photographer.
Oh, right, right. Yeah. So the thing that I dislike the most,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say I hate it. I don't think there's really anything about what I do that I really hate,
Uh-huh.
except um, the growing pains, I
Mm.
would say, of being a business owner, not necessarily a
Mm.
photographer, right? Um, but it's mostly, I think, right now, the season that I'm in is that it's difficult. Like I'm trying to figure out how to reclaim my life back. Um,
Mm.
because I'm working a lot, and so you only have so many hours in a week, and every time that you're working, that's less time you have with everything else. So that's less time,
Sure. Yeah.
friends, family, you know, self-reflection, whatever you want to do, and so just having to be able to figure that out, and to be able to say no to certain things, because I say yes to everything. Right,
Mm.
that's a struggle of mine. But being able to really set boundaries, like healthy boundaries, I think is something that's just difficult lately,
Mhm.
so I'm going through that. But the part that I really love, is not only just the photography aspect of it, but also the problem solving and the
Mm.
figuring things out, and try to figure things out. One of my, I don't know, so whoever's seen The Martian, there's one quote in that movie uh, that really resonated with me when I watched it the first time that I'll
Okay.
never forget. And it's when Matt Damon says, well, actually, okay, so the movie's been out long enough. Like, if y'all haven't seen it, I'm sorry, there's gonna be a spoiler alert.
Yeah,
But
it's like, I mean, just it's a really old movie. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the end, he says something like, "If you solve enough problems, you get to go home." And for
I
me,
remember.
yeah, and so for me, when I heard that, I was like, "Yo, that is truth." So
Mm,
with my business, it's like if I solve enough problems correctly, then what home means for me is that then I get to I make it,
mm,
and whatever making it means for you.
mhm, mhm.
Um, so that's like part of the process. It's like if I get to solve these, then yeah, then I'm good. But if not, then that's kind of the determining factor.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I just feel like Eric, through your story, you have grit.
No, thank you.
Like you worked really hard, and I it's a testament, right? Like you can't just hope something will fall in your lap or, And I'm not saying people do that, but I am saying that it's easier said than done, right? And I think a lot of people are waiting for the next best thing sometimes and it's not coming, but you have to kind of reflect and say, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And to what you just said, am I fixing the problems that need to be fixed to be where I need to be today? And yeah, man, I really love that. It's really good.
No, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, and that ties into a little bit about what I said, that I made a comment before in passing of like, you don't necessarily have to be great at what you do, you just have to last.
mm,
And I think just to elaborate on that,
yes.
in my experience, so in my experience as on this journey is that the process of trying to run your own business is can be so difficult that I feel like most people give up, because of how difficult it is. Not necessarily because they're bad at the craft. There could be people that are significantly better than me at the craft. But in terms of trying to run a business and figuring things out, that in and of itself weeds enough. It just weeds people out,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because it's so hard. So if you last, like, if you last like 3 years, then you've already made it further than some people. And so the
mm-hmm.
pool of photographers is smaller. And then 5 years, it's smaller, 10 years, and so on and so forth. And you're also progressing. So then, that's kind of what I mean by that. I'm not saying that you can be a great photographer and suck,
Mhm, mhm,
like you have to be good at what you do for sure. But
mhm.
I think the biggest determining factor of like your longevity and whatever you choose to pursue is just how long you can last in, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, I usually ask people before our time together ends, if they have any advice, for somebody that is thinking about photography or pursuing it, or because actually, I feel like uh, there was a period of time, during our college years where photography was a lot more accessible. And like you said you got a camera too, to go to Europe. And I feel like so I went to school for a couple years in California where things are really trendy. And it was like kind of like a trend, to be like a good photographer,
Right, right. I remember
you
that.
know and this is like something that's like a hobby that is not difficult to pick up, I feel. But like maybe there are people that are thinking, hey, like maybe I have a knack for this. Um, and maybe I'll pursue it. Like, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. I would love to talk to you, if you're an aspiring photographer. But one thing, yeah, figure out, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mm,
I would say that, especially as or whoever's listening to this, but in particular, like Asian Americans, I feel like um,
Yes.
we are not always afforded mistakes. You know, we always have to be on point. We always have to be, uh, the golden child, right? Like the child that our parents can kind of brag about. But I think what's healthy is that you're able to make mistakes and give yourself the grace to do so.
Mm,
That if you try something out, it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Like you can try again, and then you'll go further the next time that you try again. But if you try it and you're like, oh yeah, this is not actually what I want, then you figure that out, and then you move on
mm-hmm,
to the next thing and keep going.
mm-hmm,
Um, but know like why you get into, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because that alone, I think, if it's strong enough, it will hold you throughout your whole journey.
mm,
Like for me, when I lose sight of why I'm doing this because I'm so busy, or like clients are always like hitting me up like, hey, where are my photos? Or like things just get so busy. It's like, okay, I need to just take a step back and take a breath and be like, why did I get into this?
mm,
And that's to, tell stories and to create dialogue and to bring impact,
mm.
and so whatever that looks like for you and whatever the reason is for you, that alone will anchor you through whatever weather that you go through, because you will go through storms, but that anchor will make sure that you stay there. So
Mm. Yeah, that's really sound advice. I feel like, well, with the first piece, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Actually, I think that's like probably the top advice that's been given on the podcast, like by a lot
oh,
of the guests.
you're welcome. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no, I mean like, and I think it's interesting, right? Because that people feel the need to tell people that, in the sense of, I think in the Asian, like you mentioned before, the Asian American culture and the way a lot of us were raised, I think you're right. And I have to tell myself, I'm a perfectionist too. Um, and I, as much as I want to break that, right? Like, I see myself almost instilling it in my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old already,
Sure.
and I so badly want them. It's okay. Like, just try it. If it's not perfect, it's fine. And but there's still this small tendency in me that's like just kind of innate.
You're right.
but
I hear
but
that.
to for someone like you or any of my other guests to just give us permission. Give us permission. It's okay. I think it just speaks volumes. So thank you so much, Eric. Was there anything else that you kind of wanted to share about your story or your business or anything at all that I missed?
No, I mean, you asked amazing questions. No, I mean, I'm pretty good. But I mean, yeah, but I'm serious though. If anybody that listens to this that really wants to just connect and just ask me questions, I mean, I'm not calling myself a trailblazer, but I'll do all that I can to help you get to where I am and hopefully even surpass where I am. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that, Eric. Guys, the purpose of this podcast is not only to like give you resources, but just kind of break that barrier of fear of the unknown. And I think Eric is somebody here that, just from hearing his story and kind of learning more about who he is definitely a great way to even just expose yourself to the world of photography, right? You could hate it, but how do you know, unless you talk to someone. And Eric, I sorry to put you on the spot, but would you be like open to even maybe someone shadowing you or like kind of following you around? Because I feel like that's that would be cool.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm all about that. Like if someone wanted to follow me on a shoot, yeah, I mean, they can definitely be an assistant. They can definitely be very hands-on. I mean, with anyone that shadows me, I usually ask the best way that they learn, and I try
Yeah.
to, accommodate that. So,
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time.
no, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, hey guys, if you have any comments about our episode today, or if you'd like me to connect you with Eric, please feel free to reach out through social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks again, Eric. Thanks, guys, for listening. Until